So many of you would have seen this. Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz side by side at the Keith Thurman Manny Pacquiao show last weekend. And some people have remarked about how pally Wilder and Ruiz looked. They were kind of high-fiving about the fact that Ruiz managed to beat AJ. And, this is something to me which is bizarre and disturbing because indeed, I've never seen Deontay Wilder look so happy than he has since Anthony Joshua lost. I mean, you just lost the biggest payday of your career and the chance to become the undisputed champion. You've seen all that go down the drain and you respond by being over the moon about it. Now, obviously, he has the opportunity to fight Andy Ruiz if Ruiz can beat AJ in the rematch. But he didn't need for any of this to happen. He could already be undisputed now. He had the opportunity to fight AJ previously and turned it down on multiple occasions, calling it crackhead money. I mean, the same money he made against Fury, he turned down to fight AJ. But somehow it was crackhead money when AJ offered him, but it was perfectly good money when he got that for fighting Fury. Bizarre stuff. And there was a far bigger prize for fighting AJ in terms of the belts and the prestige than it would be for fighting Fury. So, really strange stuff from Deontay Wilder. I think Dylan White has talked about this. Never seen a guy so happy to see a career biggest payday go down the drain. I remember when Tommy Morrison was supposed to fight Lennox Lewis, and that would have been a WBO, WBC unification. Tommy Morrison took a tune-up against Michael Bent and got knocked out in the first round. Lennox Lewis was visibly disappointed, visibly dejected by the fact that not only did he miss out on a unification, but also on a $5 million payday. This is back in the 90s. $5 million back then was worth a lot more than it is now. Big payday for him. Missed out on it. He was pissed. As you would be if you really wanted to fight. Whereas for Deontay Wilder, it doesn't really seem to be about the fight with Anthony Joshua. I don't think, I always felt that Deontay Wilder was not afraid of AJ, but now I'm having to reassess. I mean, I don't think he's afraid of AJ now, but prior to AJ losing to Ruiz, I didn't think he was afraid of AJ. I thought like it was maybe his team. But now I'm maybe reassessing a little bit because his reaction in the wake of AJ losing, being so happy and elated, that's not the reaction you would expect from somebody who really wanted a particular fight. That's not the kind of reaction you would get. So strange stuff. And also, of course, Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz are both members of the cult of Al Heyman. And that's what it's become. It's become a cult. These guys all come out with the same phrases. They all thank Al Heyman after their fights before they do anything else. They all start, behaving in the same kind of diva-ish way and using terms like crush the street and I'm the A-side and all this kind of business. Now, I'm the A-side is also used by people outside of the Heyman stable, to be fair. But, within the Heyman stable, there is a certain way of communicating and a certain way of presenting yourself in the public. And Ruiz is now on board with that. He's now becoming like an Al Heyman fighter. And I think what it is within the Al Heyman cult, you have a lot of people whispering in your ear, filling your head up with a lot of nonsense. That appears to be the case. Because Ruiz, prior to the AJ fight, his demeanor was very different. And I'm talking about even when he was with Top Rank. His demeanor was very different. Now that he's won this fight, he does seem to have grown, a big head. His head is getting gassed up. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to lose the AJ rematch. Don't get it twisted. Plenty of fighters with a very high opinion of themselves can go in there and still get the job done. All right. And I'm talking about they win one fight, their ego gets out of control, and they still go ahead and beat the guy in the rematch anyway. That happens. But yeah, the cult of Al Heyman. And by the way, I'm not somebody who hates Al Heyman. Just in case there are any people out there that are getting things twisted. No, I was defending Al Heyman and PBC for many, many years. I think Al Heyman has done a lot of good for boxing, truth be told. But at the same time, nobody's perfect. At the same time, there are positive and negative elements to every person. And with Al Heyman, he has created, as I say, this cult-like environment at PBC, which, if you look at the welterweight division, can be very damaging at times. Because some of you will have seen during this show, they put a graphic up on screen at one point, which displayed all the welterweight champions. And they didn't include Terence Crawford. I mean, that is absurd. So they had the WBA regular champion, who at the time was Pacquiao, the WBA super champion, which is Thurman, and then they had Errol Spence, Sean Porter. So they had all the champions up there other than Terence Crawford. That right there shows the kind of disingenuous tactics that PBC often try and come up with. That right there shows you how they like to freeze people out who are not signed with them and act as though they don't even exist. And all promoters, all promotional outfits like to try and keep things in-house, but few of them would go as far as pretending as though one of the major champions in the division doesn't even exist. Because that's what they did, putting that graphic up on screen and not including Terence Crawford. They don't do that on Sky. I've never seen them do that on DAZN. They'll acknowledge champions who are with other networks and other promotional bodies. I can't even remember HBO doing that or Showtime doing that, but somehow Fox, within the PBC cult, the Al Heyman cult, are acting like Terence Crawford don't exist. Bizarre and disturbing stuff. Now, as this pertains to the heavyweight division, I've long said that in an ideal world, I would prefer AJ to not take the Ruiz rematch and for Wilder and Ruiz to fight for the undisputed now. And one of the main arguments against that is that what I just described, they could freeze out Anthony Joshua for years, and that all of the heavyweight belts would then belong to PBC, and they would have a monopoly on the heavyweight division and just be fighting in-house fights all the time. And as I've said before, I can't see that happening. For example, right now, Alexander Usyk is the WBO mandatory. Right now, Dylan White is the WBC interim champion who, because of the resolution that he has with the WBC, according to his promoter Hearn anyway, he has a guaranteed mandatory shot at the full WBC belt. You've got fighters on the way up from, people like Daniel Dubois. You still got Tyson Fury out there, of course, who's not a PBC man. You've got, I already mentioned Dylan White, you've got Hrgovic. You've got a number of heavyweights outside of the PBC sphere who are viable, who've got fan bases. Some of them are pay-per-view fighters. Some of them are already mandatories. There is no way that with all of that power that exists in the heavyweight division, and when I mean power, I'm talking about the ability to generate ticket sales and pay-per-view sales. There's a lot of power outside of the PBC sphere to be able to do that. And therefore, a monopoly on the heavyweight division is not realistic for PBC. Even if Joshua didn't take the Ruiz fight right now and let these two guys unify to become undisputed, they're not going to stay undisputed for long. There are too many belts, too many danger men in the heavyweight division. I mean, Deontay Wilder's been talking about retiring. In recent interviews, Wilder's been saying he might have a couple more fights, then call it a day. So he's trying to go the Floyd Mayweather route, right? Being very careful about who he fights when he feels like the water's, it's getting a bit too hot in the kitchen. Let me retire. And at an opportune moment when I see somebody looking vulnerable who has a belt, I'm going to come back out of retirement and fight him. Then I'm going to retire again. That game Mayweather used to play? Maybe Wilder's trying to do that. At the end of the day, he's advised by the same man, Al Heyman. Maybe he's going to try to play that game. And if he does that, there's going to be belts available. So anyway, just my musings on the heavyweight division, my latest musings on it. Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz, very pally-pally with each other at the moment. Will they be so pally if they end up fighting? I mean, there'll be a little bit of needle there. And to be fair, the Fox team tried to get them to do a face-off and stare at each other, which I think they refused to do. They're very pally-pally because, again, Deontay Wilder is so happy that he didn't have to go in the ring and fight AJ. That can be the only conclusion I can come to. He's so happy that somebody else took care of the problem for him. And he sees Ruiz as a less dangerous fight than AJ. That's my interpretation of Deontay Wilder's behavior. And obviously he's happy that a fellow cult member is now the other champion in the division, rather than it being somebody from outside the cult, because Wilder is not a bright guy. Not a bright guy at all. There are bright guys in the heavyweight division. Dylan White is bright. Tyson Fury is very smart. Tyson Fury is a funny guy because he's erratic, emotionally erratic, but he's very, very shrewd and very clever and cunning, Tyson Fury. He's probably the smartest one. If you're talking about the most cunning heavyweight out there, in and out of the ring, I would say it's Tyson Fury. He's probably the smartest one. Wilder is among the most foolish and least intellectual of the heavyweights out there. He's really a very foolish individual, but he can fight and he can certainly punch. He's one of the greatest punchers I've ever seen in my life. That right hand is a historically powerful shot, by my estimation. Anyway, those are my musings on the heavyweight division. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. It's happening, I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.